Hey everybody, welcome back to The Edge at Tip of the Spear broadcast. And we are continuing in our discussion about the sons of God coming on the daughters of men and producing Nephilim. And we've taken about, I think, 4 shots at this. I think this is number 5 if I'm remembering things correctly. And now I'm going to talk about the actual Nephilim. We talked about the sons of God and the whole situation with them and the background of that with First Enoch and Second Temple Jewish understanding. And now I want to talk about the giants that were created, or what we call the Nephilim. That's the Hebrew word, which means the fallen ones that were created. So Genesis 6:4 says, there were giants on the earth in those days and afterward. And that word afterward also means, is pointing to the land of Canaan, the promised land. When Joshua comes back into the land, he finds giants. And if you recall, remember the spies go out and they do a reconnaissance, and they come back and they tell Moses, hey, look, there's giants in the land. We're like grasshoppers to them. And your commentaries many times use that as the spies are using hyperbole in trying to make the opponents bigger than they really are, and they're exaggerating, and it's not true. But if you understand Genesis 6, they're not lying. There were giants in the land, and there were tribes of Nephilim, Rephaim, and Anakim that were in the land, and they had to deal with these giant clans. So this term, and also afterward, is a reference to what Joshua is going to encounter once he gets into the promised land. So anyway, when it says there were giants on the earth in those days, the term can be translated giants. In the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew translates it giants as well. But the Hebrew is Nephilim, which means fallen one, okay? And then it traces it when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and they bore children to them. So that's a direct link of what the scripture is saying, is that, look, that the offspring of these Banacha Elohims and daughters of men, these children that were born to them are these giants. And then it adds another commentary, and those were the mighty men of old, men of renown. The Hebrew is Gibborim. These were the mighty men. These were the famous ones. And you could see why they would be famous if they had the nature of an angel, a fallen angel, though, wicked, but the nature of a human as well, because that would give them supernatural powers more than any other humans would be. So it not only created giganticism in these creatures, and many of them were giants, but it also created a hybridization of things. These things were hybrids. And the coming of a Banaha Elohim and a human produced these hybrids. And again, this is where all the myths come from in the ancient cultures of, half human, half animal, giants, mermaids, centaurs, minotaurs. Basically, if you look at all the ancient civilizations, Aztecs, Mayans, you look at ancient Egypt, their gods. What are their gods? They're half human. They'll have like human bodies, and then like a dog head or a falcon's head, and those are different gods for Egypt, no doubt about that. But where did they get these concepts from? And then when you go to the Greek mythologies, then there's definitely some heavy duty hybridization going on there. But all the ancient cultures have these hybrid stories, that these gods came from the sky and mated with Mother Earth, or it'll be some type of weird thing like that, and the earth produced these demigods or hybrids, whatever you want to call them. There's always some type of story to this. And then they rebelled, and then they were killed off. That's always what these stories have in common. Yeah, they're all a little bit different, but they all have a commonality to them. And many of the stories have a flood destroying them, which is in concert with what happened in Genesis 6. The flood did kill these creatures. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about these creatures. Let's talk about the Rephaim, the sons of Anak, or the Anakim, because the interesting thing is it says that Noah was perfect in his generations, and so that's a reference to his genetic line. And so the genetic pool was getting destroyed by this hybridization that was going on. And again, the word perfect is in Hebrew is tamayim, which means he's unblemished, he's sound, he's without spot, unimpaired in his genetics. He's without defect. And so Noah and his family somehow are preserved genealogically. And the animal kingdom was being tampered with as well with the hybrids. So if you had a half animal, like a minotaur, centaur, or something like that, a mermaid or whatever, definitely the animal kingdom had been affected. So what God does is bring the animals that are pure in their genetics to Noah and put them on the ark. So everything that goes on the ark is how God created that particular animal. And the 8 humans that come on the ark, they're genetically pure too. So the animals and the humans are genetically pure. That's who makes it on the ark, okay? And so the hybridization had been going on for decades after decades after decades, and it had polluted the gene pool so bad that, it threatened the line of the Messiah. Remember what we talked about, the whole reason for this is to stop the line of the Messiah being human. And the Messiah had to be human, and so, Satan's attempt is to destroy that line. It's also to threaten Israel as well with these hybrids, especially when Joshua gets into the land. But if you look at all the ancient cultures, like I said, Sumer, Babylonia, Syria, Egypt, Incas, Mayas, Persian, Greece, it's the same thing. Demigods. Like in the Greek myths, you have the Titans. And, I remember Chuck Missler talking about this a long time ago in the 90s. And he had some interesting stories about the Sioux Indians in America, that even the indigenous people here in America had these legends of star people who came down and commingled with people and produced giants. So even the American Indian had these stories that went back. I remember him mentioning a long time ago that that William F. Cody, in other words, the other name for him is Buffalo Bill, wrote in his autobiography a reference to some of these strange episodes appearing in the legend of the Pawnee Indians. And so while he was in the Sandhill scouting, the Pawnees, the Indians, brought in what was identified as a thigh bone of human being. And the Indians said these bones belonged to a race of people who long ago had lived in that area. And they said these people were 3 times the size of man of the present day. They were very swift and strong. They could run alongside of a buffalo, taking the animal in one arm and tear off its leg and eat it as they ran. They said the thigh bone was so large it didn't even fit into a wagon, so they didn't keep it. But Cody recorded this in his journal. I remember hearing that and thinking that's nuts, but it's true, man. I mean, there's legends about this stuff all over the planet, and it's not just Greek mythology or Roman mythology. It's in the American Indians, it's the Incas, the Mayans, the Aztecs. They all have it. I remember Chuck saying one time that the Indians had these legends of these giants and these hybrids, and they were terrified of them in their legends. And so he said that the story behind how Indians greet one another by putting up their hand, how they met a stranger, that's how they met a stranger, is by lifting up their hand. And he would say the reason was because they were checking to see if there was 5 fingers or if there was 6 fingers. And you're thinking, what's the big deal about 6 fingers? Well, in the Bible, a lot of the Nephilim had extra digits and they had 6 fingers, some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. And so they would have extra digits in their hands. And so that was kind of one of the legends that was recorded, that the American Indian wanted to check whether or not someone was human or someone was a Nephilim. They didn't call them Nephilims, obviously, but that was according to their legends, right? So anyway, it's prolific among the ancient cultures. So that being the case, what came about with these hybrids? Well, what came about with these hybrids is giant clans or hybrid clans, Nephilim, Rephaim, Anakim. They were all part of these giant clans. So this exacerbated things to a level that went beyond normal. Okay, this wasn't just humans doing this. We had a hybrid on the ground now that has a satanic nature because of the fallen angel aspect to them. And so it made everything go out of control during the period before the flood. And so this is the level of evil that was seen, and that's why God had to destroy the world, because of this hybridization and the exacerbation of evil that came from it. So then what happened to the Nephilim? Well, then they were killed by the flood, obviously. And what happened, what developed was in Second Temple literature, Jewish literature, I should say, the Jewish people started dealing with them, the Nephilim, of, okay, well, where did their spirits go? And what developed is an understanding that there is a difference between a Bene Elohim that has fallen versus a disembodied spirit of a Nephilim. And so what developed out of that was demonology. So Second Temple Jewish literature started making a difference between fallen angels and demons, and they basically were saying demons were the spirits of Nephilim that were killed by the flood, and they acted differently than Bene Elohims. When you look at the contrast in Scripture, there is a profound difference when you study demons versus fallen angels or angels themselves. Angels, or even fallen angels, can materialize in the time-space continuum. They actually have bodies. They have spiritual bodies, but they can manifest their bodies. That's why, like, you know, when on these UFOs and UAPs that people see, 90% of them are fake, but the ones that are real, that have been caught on radar with the Navy and the military or whatnot, those are real, and we've all seen the videos of those. Those are fallen angels manifesting. They are not UFOs with little aliens and stuff like that. Those are fallen angels that are appearing in our space-time continuum, and then what happens is they disappear, and they can go back and forth, and they can appear as anything they want to appear, by the way. They're shapeshifters, and so they can appear any way they want. This is why the Navy records them going into water, coming up out of the water, going 13,000 miles per hour, then stopping on a dime, doing a right angle, which again, if this was an alien spacecraft, it would be crushed by the physical laws of our universe, because it doesn't matter what kind of technology you have, you can't break the laws of our universe if you're a physical creature and you're flying in a physical machine, because it would have crushed into a can because of the G-force if it made a right angle turn coming at 13,000 miles per hour. That's impossible. But if they were a spirit creature, that's totally possible, and that's not a problem for any angel or fallen angel to go that fast and be able to turn on a right angle. So the things we're seeing in the skies are fallen angels. Okay, fallen angels are far different. They can shapeshift, they can manifest, they can have physical bodies. Even the good angels we saw appeared with the Lord. They ate with Abraham, right? They go into Sodom and Gomorrah to get Lot out. They take on physical form. Most of the angels that appear in physical form appear as young men. You will not see any female angels. They're all males. And so they're different compared to a demon. Let's do the comparison then. So a demon cannot manifest a body. That's why you see demons wanting to possess people. Okay, so demons want to possess a body, and they don't care if it's a human body or even if it's an animal body. Remember, Jesus cast the demons, legion, into a herd of pigs. Remember, they would rather go into the pigs, an animal, rather than go into the pit. And so they look for possession. The other thing about demons is they hate water. How do we know? Because of how Jesus interacted with them. He says when the demons are exorcised, they go to find dry, arid spaces. And as a punishment for the demons possessing the guy at the Gadarene, he put the demons into a swine of pigs, but then drove the pigs off the side of the hill into the Sea of Galilee and drowned them. And so he judged them with water. So why do demons hate water? Because that's how they were killed. They were killed by the flood. So they absolutely hate water. They stay away from water. And that's part of their MO. Angels could care less. That's why you see angels on the radar and the Navy going in and out of the ocean and going up and down. They don't have any problem with water. Demons hate water. They hate it. They absolutely hate it. And that's according to Messiah. They stay away. They go to arid desert places. That's where they go. So there's a difference. And if you start realizing that there's a difference, that demons are earthbound, okay? Can they move and go through the earth very quickly? Absolutely, but they're earthbound. They seem to be located on this abode. Fallen angels, on the other hand, have access to not only our abode, the earth abode, but they have access to their realm, which is the second abode or space. That's their habitation. And they access back and forth our earth and the universe, if you want to call that. They can access also, angels can access also the throne of God. Satan is a fallen angel, and he can go before the throne of God. He can't go into New Jerusalem, but he can go into other parts of the third abode and have an audience with God. And so we see that, but we don't see demons having access to the third abode. We see demons strictly stuck here on planet Earth. We see them stuck in the underworld as well. They seem to have access to the underworld and can go back and forth. But again, the underworld is in planet Earth, and that's the only access to it. So sometimes when people have demons manifest, they'll have a sulfur smell to them, or something like burning. Well, that sulfur smell is coming from the pit. It's coming from the center of the earth. When we know there's molten lava and sulfur in the center of the earth, and so they smell like the location where they have been. So they have access back and forth from planet Earth to the underworld, Sheol, or Hades as we call it. And so they emit that odor. So there is a difference, and you got to know the difference when you start looking at different spirit creatures. They're not the same. It's not to be dogmatic about it, and again, we're not accessing Second Temple literature as on par with Scripture. I'm just saying that's what the Jewish thought was. That's probably what the New Testament writers had in their back of their mind, especially when they saw demons all over the place when Jesus was on the earth. And when you just do the comparison from the 66 books, anytime a spirit creature is mentioned and you compare them to the other spirit creature, which is called a demon, They're vastly different, vastly different. And anyway, the other thing I would report on a personal level is I've talked to people that were involved in the occult and heavily involved, and what they report to me that there was a known difference between a demon and a fallen angel. And one instance, I was told that the demon that was attempting to possess the person had admitted that they were a Nephilim, and that he had a father who was a fallen angel, and he was very close to this fallen angel father of his. And this is what the person reported to me. And again, you know, with my background of knowing Genesis 6, that was consistent with what I understood about Genesis 6 when I was told that information. And so, again, I didn't doubt the person. I'm just, yeah, that's what happened. And so it kind of confirmed the theology when I heard someone say that. So that's just something to look at and something to think about. But what's the application, though? Well, the application is what Messiah said, that it would be like in the days of Noah before his return. Okay. Well, we know it's definitely violent before he returns. We know that Noah's days was violent, but the big hallmark of Noah's day was hybridization. That was the big thing there. Now, we know what was causing hybridization, but Jesus says it will be likened to the days of Noah. And so a lot of people are seeing a parallel today with hybridization, not so much coming from angels doing this, but humans doing this. And you have humans now tampering with DNA, with CRISPR, and you know, creating some types of hybrid animals. We hear rumors of this stuff happening in China and different places of the world where this is not regulated, and they're experimenting with hybridization. I've seen pictures of a mouse with a human ear on it. We know that they're trying to mix pig and human DNA to grow parts for humans, you know, for replacement of livers or kidneys or something like that, you know. So you have this hybridization already starting to develop by humans. And then you just have the moral hybridization of things where people are saying, hey, I think I'm a boy in a girl's body. I want to change my body. And so I'm going to have a surgery, and I'm going to put puberty blockers and testosterone and hormone blockers and whatnot to transform into something else. And then you hear from the World Economic Forum, Humans 2.0, transhumanism, that kind of mentality. And so there's a lot of talk these days about hybridization. It's not the same per se as, you know, Genesis with the Bene Elohim or creating hybridization. It's humans doing it. It's humans creating the hybridization. And we don't know how far this will go, but like into the days of Noah, the principle is hybridization. So hybridization was happening back then. Hybridization is starting to happen now. And the fact that they want to fuse biotechnology into our bodies, that should be alarming to everybody, because well, what does that mean? What do you mean? You want to chip me? You want all my bio information on a computer, AI? You know, you want to do neural implants into my brain like Elon Musk does? And what does that mean? You know, well, all that right there is called hybridization. You got even hybridization of people, you know, not necessarily, you know, changing their gender, but some people actually wanting to change into an animal. And you got guys, you know, tattooing themselves and splitting their tongues to look like a lizard and to look like a cheetah or whatever. You have people that are cuckoo, and you have a guy that wants to look like a little girl. I mean, it's just insane stuff. And now it's being celebrated, right? It's the celebration of the hybrid. And that's another parallel I want you to understand, the celebration of the hybrid. Like if you come against saying, hey, boys should be boys and girls should be boys and you shouldn't change your gender, you're like the bad guy now. You're the evil guy. And in Noah's day, it was the celebration of the hybrid because guess what they celebrated? The men of renown. That's what it refers to. And the men of renown means they were famous. These hybrids were famous because I'm sure they could do supernatural things that no one could do. And, like Chuck Missler's story of him saying that these things were so swift they could run alongside a buffalo and tear its leg off and eat it at the same time. And I'm sure they were superhuman because they had angelic supernatural abilities. I'm sure they were impressive. I'm sure people worship these demigod types of creatures. And so you bring that to today and you start realizing, wait a second, we're celebrating hybridization as well. We are supposed to applaud and clap when a girl cuts off her breasts and says she's a boy. We're supposed to clap and applaud that. So these hybrids are the people of renown. When we have our own health secretary in the United States who looks like a freak and it's a guy dressed up like a girl, we're supposed to celebrate the hybrid. We're supposed to say, hey, that's wonderful. Isn't that great? So they're actually forcing us to say these hybrids are special and isn't that wonderful? It's the same principle. It's the same principle. It's hybridization and the celebration of the hybrid. That's what the two parallels are happening in our day and time. And so it's happening. And I don't know how long we have, but I know this. Every year, they get more advanced in their technology, and they are getting closer and closer to being able to say, you know what? You want to change your DNA? You want to change into a human 2.0? You want to live forever? All these crazy things that they promise, they will eventually have the ability to do this. I mean, they're right on the cusp now. And what does that mean? Do we have clones all of a sudden? What kind of world will we have? Well, it'll be a world that's very similar to the days of Noah, where not everybody is human. Maybe one human was grown in a lab and they don't have a soul, but they're some type of hybrid and they genetically modified this thing to be a super soldier or something like that. I mean, the sky's the limit on what they could do, right? The sky's the limit. And, who knows what they're thinking, right? But it's funny that in sci-fi movies, the sci-fi movies were way ahead of their time. Whether you're dealing with Star Trek or dealing with Star Wars or you're dealing with The Matrix or you're dealing with, the Terminator or any of these sci-fi movies and genres, they all had a hybridization going on. They all had clones. They had all these things that they talked about are now a realization in our world. And so that's pretty alarming. How did they know that, right? How did they understand that? And so anyway, something to think about. But all in all, that's the takeaway. So we should expect before the Lord takes us home to start seeing the celebration of the hybrid. And guess what? We're seeing that. And so the takeaway then becomes when you see these things begin to happen, Luke 21, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. That means you're getting closer to the Lord's return because the Lord's not going to allow this to happen again. He's not going to allow the hybridization of humans to happen again. And you saw what he did with the flood. So that means that he will end this, but he will end it not in water, but in fire. And the fire of the tribulation, the fire of the judgments, so to speak, of the tribulation will put this at an end because mankind will be threatened, its very existence will be threatened by the hybridization of what Satan is trying to do. So anyway, that will bring us to a wrap and to the conclusion of the understanding of Genesis 6. So study well, study hard, and that will hopefully open up things as you read the New Testament to understand it in a better, more robust type of understanding of what Peter was talking about, what Jude was talking about, what was going on with Jesus, with the demons. I hope that gives you a kind of a better insight in what was happening. So anyway, keep studying. God bless you. We'll see you next time.